It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studio is my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
As the insolvency date for Social Security gets closer, the question isn't will Social Security change, but rather, are you preparing for it appropriately? In this episode of the Wise Money Show, we're going to review the latest projections for Social Security insolvency, what the likely Social Security changes will be, and how you should adjust your financial plan right now. That and more on this hour of the Wise Money Show.
Nice. Insolvency is a scary word, and right there, that fear can, especially when it's tied to Social Security and this uncertainty, it could stop you in your tracks. And that's not what we're aiming for. Right now, we're going to help share what insolvency means, but also how you can prepare right now, overcome that fear, and plan ahead with confidence. If you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search The Wise Money Show. Yeah, when it comes to the future, there's one train of thought that is, well, no one can know the future, and therefore it's worthless to plan ahead. I can't plan ahead. The reality, though, is even though you don't know the future, planning ahead leads to better outcomes. You're more prepared for the inevitable changes that lie ahead in the future. And yet with Social Security, we know we're on an unsustainable path. And we're going to give you the latest updates on that insolvency projection. And I think that uncertainty leads a lot of people to just jump right in and say, okay, well, I don't know what's going to happen, therefore I'm going to draw Social Security right away, or get very fearful, or I don't know how to plan.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't help when the latest headlines are really sensationalizing the problem as well. And, you know, the word insolvency is thrown around an awful lot these days. Forecasting, when is this whole system going to break? And you could start telling yourself a story that, boy, Social Security is on its way to just complete bankruptcy. All my benefits are going to be gone. You could really get yourself worked up pretty quick. And I think it's important to pause and say, okay, what does this ultimately mean in my financial life? What should my response be? What should my planning, how should it change? And that's really what today's show is all about, right?
In insolvency, let's start there before we get into the recent changes and then how you should plan ahead. Insolvency often makes people feel like, well, Social Security is just going to stop. That's not true. What does insolvency mean?
Well, it basically means that no longer will there be enough money coming in from all the tax collections that the Social Security Administration is drawing out of people's paychecks and everything. No longer enough coming in to cover the benefits that are being paid out.
The full benefits.
That's right. This is, at the end of the day, this is really an issue of how many people are paying into the system compared to the number of people that are drawing out of the system. Early on, that ratio used to be, there could be 16 workers for every one person drawing Social Security. Right now, that's under 3 workers per one recipient.
Yeah, close to two people then are paying into the system for every one that's receiving. And so insolvency, when that date is, which the latest, by the way, from the Social Security Administration says it's 2034. I'll give you an update here in just a minute. But when we hit insolvency, the amount of payout would be reduced to the current funding level, meaning the current taxable income from Social Security or into the Social Security Administration. Right now, we've always said plan on about a 20% reduction, and the recent forecasts show that's close. So where your benefits would drop to the current funding level, so about a 20% decline in benefits.
Yeah, so I started my career in 1994. And as I worked with people doing financial planning, this is a show about financial planning. Because the question isn't, are we great at being prognosticators and saying what's going to happen to Social Security? We're not. I remember earliest, looking at 2036. And I was thinking, all right, 2036, I'll be 68. Hopefully I'll have had enough time to accumulate what I need, and I should be okay if Social Security starts sliding sideways. But I remember in 1994, there were people that were saying, hey, will you show me my financial plan without any Social Security?
Yeah.
Because even back then, people looked and said, I don't see how this is sustainable. And as you looked at the trajectory, and I think, okay, you go from 16 people paying in to 16 to 1, now to 2 to 1. I'm thinking, well, you two people better get to work because it's going to be really tough to do.
So is that how you should plan ahead? Just not plan on any Social Security? We would argue no, right? We would argue no. That's a pretty significant sacrifice. Kevin mentioned that early in his career insolvency, they were projecting around 2036. The most recent report from the Social Security is saying that's 2034. What has happened recently? Well, two big analyses have been done, one from the Penn Wharton budget model, and then another proposal from the Committee for Responsible Budgeting, which is kind of hilarious. Like not funny, but funny. But the Penn Wharton budget model did this full analysis, and they're not making a recommendation on what Social Security reform should look like, but they did their analysis and then just came out with a few scenarios. Guys, in their analysis, they're projecting insolvency to be moved up 2 years, 2032, which feels like tomorrow. Like feels right around the corner. We'll see when the Social Security Administration officially comes out with their analysis, hopefully here in a couple of months, whether they're moving insolvency up or what their analysis is. But yeah, that was a big surprise.
It is a big surprise, and you start thinking, boy, we're going to blink our eyes and 2032 is going to be here. Whether it's 2032 or 2034 or 2036, it doesn't really matter. The point is, it is on the horizon now.
Yeah.
This is no longer just theory. It's not something, a hypothetical problem out there in the future that hopefully someone will deal with. No, this is like real-time issue that needs to be addressed. And if politicians don't get it solved, then yeah, the insolvency that we've been talking about, again, it may just mean a reduction in the benefits that can be paid because there's not enough tax coming in to pay the full obligation or the full commitments that the government has made to people.
So how do you fix it? That's what people have been wondering. People have been kind of clamoring about. In the Penn Wharton budget model, in that analysis, they broaden my perspective on potential changes that could be in place. We don't know. It's likely going to be a combination, but we're going to go through the top 6 potential changes and not just kind of banter about what those are, although explain them, but how should it impact your plan. But in addition to what the Penn Wharton budget model came out with, where they ran a scenario, how much of the Social Security funding gap would be covered if this change was made or if this change or this combination of changes. But this Committee for Responsible Budgeting, they came out with an actual proposal. And their proposal isn't a full fix to Social Security, but it would surprisingly patch more or fill in more of the hole than I expected. And they're calling it a 6-figure limit. This is almost laughable because, so here, let me tell you what it means. That Social Security benefits for a couple would be capped at 6 figures. That's right. $100,000 of Social Security benefits received in a given year. And you might say, yes, that should be a rule. And by the way, single individuals, it'd be capped at $50,000. The truth is right now, very, very few people are getting anywhere close to that limit in Social Security. But with inflation, and as more people retire and have like high wages throughout their career, more and more people would be above this amount. And therefore, this cap apparently, and would have they're proposing very little inflation adjustment to that cap, would actually fill in almost half, or in some scenarios, more than half of the shortfall. So we don't know. I did a YouTube video on this, and as expected, there are a lot of people in favor of the 6-figure limit.
And is that because it essentially shifts the weight and responsibility to younger generations?
Yeah, and there's a lot built into the Social Security system that is progressive. And I think politicians and lawmakers want it to be very much progressive, and that's how Social Security is calculated. The bend points are progressive, and this would say, hey, capping the top end benefits, yeah, that means high wage earners aren't getting as much, and I think a lot of people are fine with that.
Mm-hmm. I understand. It's anytime you can offer a solution that you won't really feel a whole lot today,
right?
And it will affect people further down the road. That's often a pretty popular claim.
Yeah. All right. So what are the potential changes likely to come to Social Security? But not just bantering about those. How should these impact your planning today? We've got that and more coming up here on The Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is The Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on the channel, 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Saturday morning. Also on podcasts at the same time as well, but also on a couple local radio stations, which is why the content's structured the way that it is. We've got segments and breaks. It's a commercial break right now for the radio. But right here on this channel, if this long form is too much, I get it. We've got next wise step videos and other videos right here on this channel that are all designed to take a financial concept, apply it directly to you. We've actually done a few videos on this from different angles, all to help you prepare and plan ahead for Social Security. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. If you like the content, we appreciate it. Kevin, did you turn that?
I did. I was getting a little hot. Maybe I should take my vest off.
I had it
I'm happy to
set
do that.
at 68, I think, or 67.
It's at 67 right now. All right, I moved it to.
I started shaking
now.
Started shaking halfway through. All right, so now let's get into it, and then each of the potential changes quickly. Like, what does it mean? And then, how likely is it that you should plan? Or that this change could happen, and then if so, how should you plan? And the first one, I think, just gives us a platform to say, I wouldn't plan on this. Sound good? Like that direction?
Ish.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
Here we go. Are you planning ahead for the potential changes to Social Security when we don't know what they are? We don't know when they will occur. And so many people say, well, then I can't plan. Yeah, you can. You can. We're going to show you how you can plan in the midst of this uncertainty so you have an even more confident retirement. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search The Wise Money Show. Yeah, we don't know when Social Security is going to change. We believe the insolvency date is moved up to 2032. I said that was a surprising finding. Some of you might say, it's not surprising. We know this thing's, a train wreck. No. Like, guys, we haven't seen a recession. Employment's been really strong. We've very low unemployment. Like, those things are what play into the FICA taxes people pay into Social Security. That's been solid. I don't understand why Social Security insolvency would be moved up to 2032, but we know it's going to change. We don't know how exactly, and we don't know exactly when, but that still means you can plan ahead and you can prepare. We're going to talk through 6 potential or likely changes, what they mean, and then how you can plan ahead. And guys, the first one is really just for some quick banter. One potential change is they just let this thing go insolvent.
And again, we're defining insolvent as not getting $1 for every dollar I was promised. I'm getting 80 cents or 60 cents for every dollar I was promised.
A reduction. That's right. A reduction. So, guys, how likely is that to happen? Should people be planning for that? What do you think?
I feel like that's the scenario worth planning for because it, in many ways, is a worst case scenario. It's the recipients of Social Security that take it on the chin in that scenario, right? As opposed to some of the others that we'll get into often relate to paying more taxes for those that are still working, right? Mm-hmm. It's maybe the easiest one to stress test in your retirement forecast. You know what the government has promised you in Social Security benefits. If you reduce that by 20% and see if the math still works, and for many people, it won't still work. They'll need to make some adjustments, and we can talk about what those adjustments might be. But To me, this is probably the most straightforward scenario. Now, whether or not that's what happens, I don't know. I don't look around at our lawmakers, and there's not a lot of people running for office on a platform that says, hey, I'm going to fix Social Security. Yeah. Most people don't want to touch that. And that's just kind of the reality that we've been in for some generations now.
I don't think they will let Social Security become insolvent. I do think Social Security will change. I don't think they'll let it become insolvent. And yet, how much confidence do I have that lawmakers will be able to solve a problem before it becomes a real problem?
I don't think this problem gets touched until we're in crisis mode. So if we're answering the question, how should I plan? Yeah. The way I would plan, I think, how many budgets should I have if I'm expecting a child? Is it
3?
3. Yep. So I should have 3 budgets. Maybe I should have 2 budgets as I look at my retirement. And the question is, some folks retire and everything's super tight. Well, if you're super tight, you might want to look and say, well, then what changes might I make between now and then to create some sort of slack, and maybe have 2 budgets, or just set up, if you've got surplus and lots of additional money, what might it look like if Social Security isn't what I was planning on? So maybe I work with my certified financial planner and say, hey, take our Social Security that we're expecting, cut that in half, and show me what the probability of success for my plan looks like.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. So it's 5-factor retirement plan, right? And we've spent a lot of time talking about that. If you don't have a 5-factor retirement plan, I don't know how you're planning confidently for retirement. That is what you need. Those are the variables you need to work through. They're interrelated. They're not independent. They're interrelated. So you make an adjustment in one, it's going to affect your trade. It's going to create some trade-offs in the others. And so retirement income, if you take your Social Security and you reduce it by a certain amount, see what that does to your plan and see what trade-offs you need to make. I was just going to ask that certain amount. When we've done this stress testing, we've reduced it by about 20%. So an 80% payout. Yeah. The Penn Wharton budget model shows the first year, if they allow insolvency, it'd be about an 83% payout. So a 17% cut. But then if they continue to not fix it, that gets worse and worse. And I think, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think the final version, 60-some percent. Yeah. So Kevin, you said half, cut it in half. Is that what you'd recommend?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
30%? Or what?
Well,
what would
I would, for me, financially, I would want to be more conservative. So show me the worst case scenario. Because if they're saying, hey, in year number 1, we're in the 80s, and if it's unaddressed, we get to the 60s, show me what it looks like at 50. Because here's the thing. What we're helping clients achieve is clarity and confidence, right? This is not a show to instill fear in anybody. Hopefully what people do as they're listening is they have the resolve to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, I can figure this out. I have no idea. I can't control politicians, and I have no idea how they're going to fix it, but I'm going to be able to figure this out for me. That is hopefully the message you're receiving.
Right. So if I'm dealt a terrible hand, and instead of getting $1 from Social Security, I end up getting 50 cents, what does that look like? And when I look at that, I kick the tires on that and say, I could live with that. I mean, if you think about that, depending on your Social Security and depending on what happens with Medicare Part B, I mean, you might look at most of your Social Security going to pay for your Medicare.
Hey, in that good news, we are talking about IRMA planning and all that next week, so make sure you stay tuned to the Wise Money Show. Yeah. Okay, so a 50% drop. Josh, would you say 30%?
To me, I think this maybe has to do with what age you are as well. Sure. Because if you're close to retirement, then maybe all the forecasts would suggest that, you're probably, if insolvency were the solution, so to speak, or the outcome, you may experience a 20% drop. If you're a little further from retirement, maybe you need to be modeling something more like a 25 or 30%. Those who are like 40 and under, I agree with you, Kevin. You probably ought to be conservatively assuming that you only get half of the benefits that the government is currently promising you.
Yeah, but the question we didn't answer is, I'm retired right now, right? Yeah. I'm retired right now. I'm 70. What should I do? I do like the idea of working with my certified financial planner to say, hey, show me what it looks like. Yeah. Show me, drop it to 80% in 2032 and 60% in 35 and run it out at 60 and show me what it looks like? And does that work? What does that do to the probability of success of my plan?
That's the key. It will reduce the probability of success, but it might reduce it to a level that's still very acceptable to
Exactly.
you. Right.
Right.
So it might not require that you dramatically change your lifestyle or start, some sort of austerity plan or anything like that. But you would want to know, maybe I have a little bit more risk that I could run into an economic condition or a market condition that shakes up my portfolio a bit. And with reduced Social Security now in the mix, maybe that reduces your probability that you have money left at the end of your retirement when you pass away.
Mm-hmm.
Can the smartest people just please be working on this problem? I just feel like we're gonna kind of venture into more potential changes, and I just hope we've got all of the right analysis and all of the right forecasting being done to make the best possible adjustment so that we don't have to have people see a 50% reduction in their Social Security.
Here's the encouragement I would give. The smartest people are going to work on it, and they're going to do exactly what we just talked about because they're working on their situation, their plan. You could wait around for the government to tell us all, you must pay more into the Social Security. We're going to tax you more. Or what if you just chose yourself that you're going to save some more right now? You're making that response for yourself and putting yourself in a better situation. What if the government tells you that full retirement age is going to go up? Well, what if you just started bracing yourself right now for a plan where you work just a little bit longer? Mm-hmm. That's you being the smartest one in the room because you're planning for yourself instead of waiting around for the government to do it for you.
Dude, I've been waiting my whole life to be the smartest one in the room.
You always have been, Kevin.
Well, I mean, Josh, you kind of ran through a few of the changes, and we'll get to them, a few other changes. But I do think a lot of them will probably come back to this one. Whether you just listen to that banter and say, no, guys, I'm not going to do that because I don't think insolvency is actually going to occur, like me, still the right way to plan right now in the midst of all the other the 5 other potential changes that we could see that we're about to talk about. You might come back to this first action item of, all right, now let me just update my 5-factor retirement plan, assuming a significant cut into Social Security, and see how that models out. Because I actually think that will cover a lot of the potential changes that we're about to cover. I think it will help you plan ahead for a lot of those potential changes. What are they? We're going to review those and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Cohorn Financial Group. Really good, Josh. That like summarized it right there. That was great. Happy accident. All right, short break.
Right.
Although
Increased taxes.
Start going through the solutions.
Yeah. So we've got to hit a couple. I mean, we're halfway through. We got to hit a couple of these at a time.
Yep.
I mean, a few of the last 2 we can go quickly through because we're not going to talk about the details. But if any, so we've got 5 more to hit. Increase taxes and change the full retirement age. We can spend more time on that. And the last 3 we can go really quickly through. So here we go. How likely is it that part of the patch to the fix to Social Security is going to involve increase in taxes and delayed benefits? I actually think those are very, very probable. The question is then, how do you plan ahead? How does that impact your planning right now? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Cohorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Cohorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Now, if the weather's nice and you get outside and walk around, listen on podcasts, wherever you're at, search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there. Rate the program at your podcasting platform as well. We appreciate that. All right, we're talking through changes to Social Security and how these potential changes we know are on the horizon. We don't know what's going to happen, and therefore so many of us just freeze. Say, I can't plan because I don't know what's going to happen. And the truth is actually the opposite. While you don't know what's going to happen, that means you should increase your planning because that planning, those running, doing the fire drills, that will give you increased confidence and it will make you more prepared for whatever the eventual changes turn out to be, which you have no control over anyway. So we talked through insolvency. We're going to come back to that one. But the next likely change, and I think very likely, is increase in taxes. Now, this could come in 2 different forms. All of us pay FICA taxes on our wages up to a certain limit. Okay, that FICA is 7.65%. that you pay, and then your employer pays 7.65 as well. They call that payroll tax. If you're self-employed, you're paying both of those. 6.2 of that 7.65, that's what goes into Social Security, and it's up to a wage limit. So
184,500.
Okay. Yep. So there's two potential tax increases that they could do. One, they could increase that 6.2%. I saw an analysis done by the Social Security Administration a few years ago where they increased it by 1% for you. So you'd pay 7.2% into Social Security, but your employer would also pay 7.2%. And I saw that was a significant increase in FICA taxes, but that would have solved Social Security. Now, this was several years ago. This is a couple of years ago. So every year we go without solving it, these patches are less effective.
The gap gets wider.
But more recently, we've seen a 0.5% increase in each of those. I have no idea if that's what they would do. But then another potential tax increase could be, well, they just lift that 184,500. They just move it to 250 grand, or move it to 300, or make it unlimited. If they did that, what most people don't realize is, well, then an unlimited amount of wages would be factored into calculating your Social Security. So there is a little bit of a double-edged sword. But increased taxes. How likely do you guys think that'll be part of the patch? And then how can you plan ahead for that right now?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, as we're talking about this, and forgive me for being stuck in 1994, but the wage limit was 60,100. So that 12.4% that got paid into Social Security was capped at 60,100. So go from 94 to 2026, and it's 184,500. So they have been raised.
Yeah, aggressively. Yeah,
there has been. I guess you would call that a tax increase, or
I mean, you're paying more taxes. Yeah.
At least an increase on the amount of wages subject to Social Security. So that is an increase.
The hard part with the math on that, though, is as you are earning more, you're also being entitled to bigger and bigger benefits as well. So
I know
the benefits are getting bigger as you earn more, and your taxes are getting bigger because of the way the laws are written right now.
I think this is an almost certainty. Whenever they fix Social Security, there's going to be an increase in taxes. I feel very confident in that.
I assume so as well. Again, it's not a popular one, though, because what politician wants to be known as the guy or gal that suggested we raise taxes on people, right? Mm-hmm. They want to be the hero, not the one who's the villain.
So how do you plan ahead? I don't think a tax change alone will fix this, but I do think this goes back to, Kevin, you talking about, budgeting and so on, and how geeky, and I know that, speaking of unpopular, like that, that sounds terrible, but managing your cash flow right now. I mean, if they increase the FICA taxes by 1%, you might not feel much of that, but it would be an increase. Doing the math, we're not going to lay out all the scenarios here on the radio, but, an extra 1,000 of taxes, a couple thousand of taxes a year. You might say, well, that's a drop in the bucket. Well, it's real cash flow.
You would feel it at some level, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason it would be so unpopular is that would be a rule that would apply to everybody who's working, right? Everyone would pay an extra 1%. Whereas the other option that you talked about, if they just raise the cap on how much of your wages they're taxing you on, that affects the people that are earning the most, right? Mm-hmm. But either scenario does help to contribute. My response, again, is if you're wondering whether or not you could afford another 1% tax out of your paycheck, why don't you go do it right now?
That is the takeaway.
Why don't you go increase your 401k contributions by 1% this year and prove it to yourself? Yeah. Prove it that, I can handle this, right? Yeah. And instead of that going into some big pot that is going to current recipients of Social Security, that will be piling up in an investment account that you control and that is helping your future specifically.
And that is way more popular and feels much better than budgeting to see if I can cut 1% out of my, that's going to feel, that won't be fun and might not even amount to much. If you flip it, though, and say, well, I'll increase my retirement savings by 1%, now that's going to force that budgeting, but you're also going to be saving the difference. Absolutely love it, Josh. That's the takeaway.
Yeah, I think if you were going to summarize the takeaway, you would say the preemptive strike to a potential tax cut is cleaning up my balance sheet. Yeah. Because as my balance sheet gets more tidy, I'm more able to do that extra 1% or 2% or whatever it is if I'm not already maxing.
Yeah.
You're talking about wiping out some debt or freeing up some cash flow so that you have the room to be able to handle that type of an increase to savings.
Yeah, I what keeps coming to my mind, just because my children are in this range, is you start turning off the faucet and the leakage that goes to the adult children. And I mean, that's a way to seal and prevent more leak. So there are a lot of things that you can do to either fix your balance sheet or fix your current expense structure and just say, hey, it's time.
Yeah.
We need to have a talk.
I mean, here's an example. I mean, this is an example of how the 6 areas of your financial life are all working together. It's present financial position, that's budget, but it's impacting directly your retirement plan. All right, so third change, and this one gets talked about a lot as well, and that is changing the full retirement age. Most people, that concept is strange, but you might hear that they talk about moving Social Security to age 70, or Denmark actually just did that, by the way. They're going to do it in phases, but they just approved it. In the Penn-Wharton budget model, they're showing full retirement age move to 69. Now, what does this mean? It used to be, your full retirement age used to be age 65. You could still begin drawing it at age 62, and you could delay it all the way until 70, but your full retirement benefit, your full retirement age was at 65. Well, when they slowly started moving that gradually to age 67, which is what it is right now, you still had that same claiming window of 62 to 67. What did that mean? Those of you that draw at 62, those of us that draw at 62, now just are getting an even bigger haircut.
Yeah.
So what that would mean, if they push the full retirement age out to age 69 or 70, I'm assuming they'd still let you draw at 62, but the haircut would be even greater.
Here's why that's so clever, though. That's a haircut that you signed up for.
Yeah.
Right? They're giving you the option to still draw early. It's just that it is even earlier. The standard, or the number of years early that you're drawing, has increased, because now you're 7 years early if you start drawing at 62.
My hunch is they wouldn't extend the kind of back end of that. They wouldn't say, well, if full retirement age is now 70, you could delay it till 72, because I think they would want to cap benefits or not, give people that extra benefit for being patient.
This is why I think this is a more likely solution than even some of the tax increases. Like I would do this one before I do the tax increases. It's less visible.
It's sneakier.
A lot of people don't even know what their full retirement age is, right? If you're in your 40s or your 50s, you don't know. At some point out in the future, the government will let me start drawing a benefit. But you would know if they start taxing you more.
And if you're looking at the full retirement age right now and you say, what should I do if they're going to move that back? I would get in the gym. I would say I have got to work on my health, because I want to get paid from Social Security. And if they're going to move back the date that the benefits that I'm expecting actually start paying, I gotta be around and be able to enjoy it.
So are you saying that to say, well, lengthen your career, work longer as well?
Well, Rick Edelman is the one that said everyone's going to work until 85.
Yeah.
So I'm not the one saying it, because if you say that, you become immediately unpopular.
Changes to the full retirement age for Social Security. There's a couple ways this can impact your plan. We're going to share that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Rick Edelman is another financial professional. He's made a lot of sort of prophetic claims about the future. Let's just say, they haven't come true yet.
No,
he's over.
No. Dude, he's going to be right.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay.
I think he says plan for and prepare for 3 distinctly separate careers. We're going to work until we're 85. He says, I don't subscribe to this, but he says you don't need long-term care because robots are going to take care of you. He said that 15 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
So I'm not saying he's the broken clock that's going to be right twice a day. I'm saying he saw a future that no one else could see and believe. And if Tesla starts building 1 million robots a year, brother, I'm going to have a robot that comes to my bedside and physically lifts me out of bed as soon as I can.
All right, so start building that skill in Claude, and include right after that the diaper change, the adult diaper change.
Well, for now,
skill.
just lift me up and take me to the potty, and then
that will all be by Lori's choice, I'm sure.
Well,
right?
no, I mean I don't need it right now, but I would take it. Like if you said someone's instead of you getting out of bed, someone's going to lift you out of bed in the morning and just put you where you need to go.
You need to go watch that cartoon. Was it Wall-E? You remember that one?
Yeah.
Where the humans are just floating around and not really doing anything. The robots do everything.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's the future I'm talking about. And Rick Edelman saw it way before anyone else did.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if and when. All right, 4-segment land on plane. We got a little bit more to hit with full retirement age change. Like basically, how does it change your plan? And then cap on benefits, COLA, and land the plane. So here we go. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on the Wise Money YouTube channel. Go check it out. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there. Turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. Not only are these talk shows right there, but a full library of content, all designed to help you take your next wise step in your financial life. And so make sure you go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe there. We're talking about changes to Social Security, but more so how you can plan ahead. Potentially, I think it's very likely they'll change the full retirement age and move it back to, whether it's 69 or 70. And what that means is if you continue to say, well, I'm going to draw at 62, then your benefit will be even less. Kevin, I agree with your recommendation. Get in the gym, work on your health. Yeah, maybe envision a longer career. And yet at the same time, I do think these changes all will continue to cast doubt for people to say, I don't know how long Social Security is going to be around. I don't know how long I'm going to be around. And that temptation to draw as soon as you possibly can will still be there, whether you're in the gym or not. Therefore, I come back to where we started the show. And another way that you can plan ahead is, forecast a reduction in your Social Security. Because drawing at 62, if they push the full retirement age out, means your Social Security is going to be even less than what they're promising you right now. And if Josh is right, he said many times that people tend to retire a couple years sooner than they plan, then it's possible this is just a very sneaky way of allowing cuts to Social Security without getting caught up in this scary word of insolvency. And so therefore, yes, work on your health. Yes, work on your budget. Yes, work on your career and the the chance of a longer career than you originally planned, but also plan on and forecast, what would happen if my Social Security was a little bit reduced? I think that covers the bases personally. So.
I feel like philosophically the risk of a reduction by the government to your benefits ought to at least get our attention and maybe cause more of us to plan on delaying our Social Security as long as possible so that at least whatever reduction could happen due to insolvency, it's coming off the biggest possible number instead of, I started drawing Social Security early. I signed up for a permanent penalty or reduction myself. And now the government's coming and reducing it even further.
So build a plan to build that bridge from retirement to drawing Social Security. Like plan on delaying.
Yeah,
what's your delay strategy?
Even if you want to be retired, like you want to be done drawing a paycheck from work at age 62, that does not mean that you have to turn on Social Security the first day of your retirement. Mm-hmm. If you have the right game plan in place, you could delay the Social Security benefits even longer, allow them to fully blossom, fully mature, get the maximum amount so that you are somewhat future-proofing or at least allowing yourself, if I'm going to be exposed to a government-induced reduction, I want them reducing off the biggest possible number.
Yeah, I don't want to self-reduce it as well.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some amazing tax planning opportunities between 62 and 65 or 62 and 70 that you can do to reposition taxable dollars to be tax-free. There's all kinds of great planning opportunities. That is a very target-rich environment.
Yeah.
But can I just improve one thing? Because I said get in the gym. But Josh said something that prompted my mind to say, or you to get some skills. Like not only get in the gym, but get skills that will keep you in the game even longer. And right now, there's an amazing change going on in the world with AI and other things. And I would say lean in and say, hey, I'm going to ride this wave too. And our team, our amazing insurance team, was just at a conference, and the chief technology officer that spoke said, I no longer listen to music in the gym. I listen to AI podcasts.
Interesting.
And that might not seem too interesting.
We're real. We're real. This is a real person talking.
Yeah. That may not seem too interesting to you, but I would lean in and say, what are my current skills, and how do they need to be adjusted if I need to stay in the game even longer?
Okay, now wait a second. Were you saying a podcast generated by AI or a podcast about AI? I thought you meant generated by AI.
No.
Because that's coming too, by the way.
Yeah, well,
it's already here.
They already are there.
Yeah.
And one that I like to listen to is, she says, this is the AI version of me.
Oh, that's funny. No, this is a human version of me. Okay, so 3 more potential changes, but we're going to hit them rapid fire. I think another potential change, they already talked about the 6-figure limit, some sort of capping the benefits at a certain amount. I also think that's likely. Again, it's important to policymakers that Social Security be progressive. And I'm not saying that it should be. I think it's important to policymakers. Yeah. I think it's important for them getting votes. And so I'm not suggesting this, but capping benefits on the high side, like you mentioned, Josh, that's not a pain. That's not a burden felt by everyone. So I think that's likely going to be part of the formula. How do you plan ahead? If you are likely, with this 6-figure limit being kind of lobbed out there, if you're doing your forecasting, your 5-factor retirement plan, and you look and say, gosh, yeah, we're going to retire in 10 years. And boy, look at that. Our Social Security would be $102,000. I would work with your CFP, and I would just put a hard cap in at $100,000 and see what happens there. And then the 5th and the 6th potential changes, a change in the cost of living adjustment formula. A COLA, every single year there's an inflation adjustment. It might be crude. You might not like it. You might not agree with it, but there currently is one. Well, they could change that formula. And then the final change is they could change the formula of how they calculate Social Security. Your primary insurance amount, the PIA. Right now, those are at certain inflection points. So they call them bend points. They basically weight your wages in the calculation for Social Security differently based on, the first 30-some grand gets, you get the majority of that factors into the formula. The next chunk is a reduced weighting, and then the final chunk is a reduced weighting. My hunch is they wouldn't mess with that first calculation, but the second and the third, or maybe even introduce a fourth, where they change the formula. Those are the potential changes I think we've got to prepare for. I lumped all those together there. How do you plan ahead? How likely, guys? What are your thoughts?
If I was going to cherry pick one of those to talk about, I would talk about the cost of living increase, because this is another one of those places where, yes, the government could start monkeying with their formulas that determine how much of a pay raise you get during your retirement on your Social Security. It's already less than what we would all agree is real inflation rate, right? But the reason I bring this one up is because this is something that you could also leverage in your own financial life, regardless of what happens with Social Security. One of the ways that you make your retirement nest egg last longer is by controlling the amount of lifestyle creep that occurs over time. And some of that is just you fighting back the effects of real inflation in your life. I remember a client early in my career who they had to be done working. They were retiring a little earlier than they wanted to. They needed help making it work. And one of the strategies that we deployed was, all right, how much control can you have on the amount of pay raises you take out of your portfolio each year? And this essentially allows them to take it on their own shoulders to say, listen, I know a gallon of milk costs $1 now and it might be $3 in the future. We're here. What if instead of just spending more and more on that gallon of milk as you get further into retirement, you had the control to reduce the amount of milk you're buying?
You drink more water. See, yeah. I agree. I would also look at the other side of that to say, be intentional with the rest of your portfolio, how are you going to beat inflation?
Yes.
If Social Security currently, it's questionable whether it is keeping up with inflation, and it's subject to possibly not keep up with inflation even more if they change this formula. What parts of your financial life can keep up with or beat inflation? Being very intentional, and that's your investment allocation in retirement. Already one of the biggest financial decisions you'll make in your life.
You have to own assets.
Yeah.
And so the question is, what types and what shape, form should the asset ownership that I have, what's the makeup of that? Because that's what's going to help me keep up with inflation. Because inflation is not stuff costs more. It's my dollars are worth less. So that's where I've got to do something to offset that.
To me, the action item in all of this entire show has been about financial planning and what is your response. And to me, the solution to whatever happens with Social Security is found in your financial plan. That's why the conversations you have right now with your certified financial planner are way more important than the conversations that are happening in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's in your control. Work with your CFP. Build out that 5-factor retirement plan. Plan with confidence. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Corhorn, all of us at KFG, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Corhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Corhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.